Hiya. So I've had a few questions recently about one of my most popular patterns, which is a really easy beginner baby bootie. It's got some short rows, it's got mostly knit stitches, a couple of increases. So it's a nice one for learning new techniques if you're a real beginner, but it also is a really quick turnaround baby bootie pattern if you just need to churn something out quite quickly. So because I've had a few questions on this, I thought, time to update the pattern and time to hopefully put together a wee video tutorial, because if you are a beginner, there's a couple of things in there that do tend to be trapping people up, and there's a couple of things in there that I can definitely clarify and make better, because the pattern's sitting there at something ridiculous like 8 years on Ravelry. So I think it's time to give it an update. So here we go. Right, so what we've got here is a cast on of 35 stitches. Is this the most sensible way of filming anything? No, but it's where my brain's at today. So we've got 35 stitches. I will edit this down to being just the useful bits, but I might make the whole video, if anyone wants the whole boring part of me doing the whole lot, also involved as well. So we've got 35 stitches. And the first row is a straight knit row. So we're just going to knit straight across the first row. Don't mind me as I sit here on the floor. I go through phases. Sometimes I sit on a chair, sometimes I don't. Mostly it depends on pain levels. And today feels right to be on the floor. And so far what we've got is nothing complicated whatsoever. I'm using a 3mm needle, which these are vintage needles that I just recently inherited, and I chose them because they coordinate with the yellow of the yarn here. And the yarn that I've got is Dreamtime Baby Merino, and I don't remember the brand name, but I will have a look shortly. Not that it really matters, let's be completely honest, baby yarn tends to be pricey. You can get the acrylic stuff, which, to be honest, it's nice and machine washable and I don't see anything wrong with it. But I went with merino yarn because it's what I can handle touching right now. Yes, this is Peyton's Dreamtime Merino. It's a 4-ply, but it's a thicker 4-ply than the blue ones I've been making. So it turns out baby bootie that's a bit larger. So at the end of our first row, we're turning around and we're going to have our first row of increases. There's 2 increases in the middle, which create the toe, and there's 2 increases at the back, which create a rounded heel. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit the first stitch. Then we're going to knit into the second stitch. We're going to go around, and we're going to knit the front of the stitch, and then we're going to knit into this back part of the stitch as well on this side. And then we're going to knit 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Right, now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to increase here with a knit in the front, and then in the back we're going to knit 1, which is our center stitch. Then the next one we're going to knit into the front and into the back, and then we're knitting 14, which will take us to the last 2 stitches on the row. And when we get to the last 2 stitches, we're going to knit into the front and back of the second to last stitch, which is going to create an increase, and then we're just going to knit the last stitch. Right, so it's 2 stitches left. Let's see if I can zoom you in. So what we've got here is I'm going to knit into this part of the stitch here. We're going to go around the needle as if we're going to knit. We're going to come through, but we're not pulling the stitch off. We're going to come around and knit that back side of the stitch. And then we're going to knit 1. Now, next row is just a straight knit. As you can see, I don't have a lot of hand control today, and I'm wearing a pair of pants with Pokemon all over them. I have learned a couple of things. One, don't wear orange when filming, because you're going to throw off your colour balance, something chronic. However, I mostly wear orange in general, so there's that. Right. Now, as we get to the middle of this row, it's going to start looking a little bit silly, but I promise you it makes sense in the end. So it just starts to get this weird bit of a bulge right now. But the bulge makes sense in the long run. Honestly, these are really nice needles, but you can see how it's got a bend in it. Definitely a vintage needle. However, what would be great is if somebody could just invent a needle straightener, because that would be like the most ideal thing ever, to be completely honest. Right, so we're now on the fourth row. This is the second increase row around the bottom of the foot. This time it's very much like the second row. We're going to knit one. We're going to knit front and back of the second stitch, so we've increased one there. We're going to knit 16 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now we're at the same point we were increasing before, towards the middle. So we're going to knit into the front and back of that stitch, increasing another one, knit that center stitch, knit into the front and back of the next one, and we're going to knit 16 stitches, which will take us, she says dropping the needle, to the second to last stitch on the row. When we get to that second to last stitch, knit in the front, knit in the back, and then knit one. I like the knitting in the front and the back because it doesn't create any holes in your work, but you can really make one on any method you like. It's a baby booty. Most babies don't care as long as it's soft. You're really knitting for mum at this point. This is now row 5, and row 5 is just a straight knit row. So we're just going to knit straight across. Right, so it's starting to get this weird bobble bit in the middle from the increases, but trust me, it's going to disappear. And when I say disappear, it's just going to be, it'll become a toe. So this is the third and last increase row, and that's it for increasing. We don't do any more increasing after this. So she says throwing that ball away. We are going to throw that out the side. Very similar to the last two increase rows, and you can see we're starting to get this rounded edge coming in here. We're going to knit one. We're going to knit into the front and back of the next one, increasing another one there. We're going to knit 18, which will take us to the middle. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It takes us to the center. So we knit front and back into that stitch, knit one, knit front and back into that stitch, and then we're knitting to the end. So we're increasing 4 stitches on every row, 2 on each side of the baby booty. Last stitch on the row, knit one front and back, and then knit the last stitch there. So that's the first 6 rows done. We've got this weird looking bit there in the middle. We've got these rounded edges on the side, and I'll try and show you a close up and compare and contrast what we had before. So here we've got the 6 rows that we've just knitted, and we've got this funny bit in the middle, and we've got these rounded sides there. And we compare it to what we've created here. Here's a green one that I prepared earlier. This one's a finished one. So if we line it up here, you can see that what we've got is these first 6 rows across the bottom. When you fold it in half, that's where it becomes apparent that what we've got is this rounded toe and this rounded heel shape. So the next 10 rows are just creating this bottom ridge. There's no increasing, there's no decreasing. So what we're going to do here is just go from there, or on this blue one. I love this blue yarn, but just notice the difference in brand between 4-plies. That's a very thin one. This is a slightly thicker one, so this ends up being a smaller booty. So we've done these first 6, and now we're going to do these next 5 ridges, which are just a straight knit. So we probably can leave this be for the moment. But while I've got the camera set up like this, I will show you up close. I'll show you the up close knitting in the front and the back. So this is not the row we're doing it on. I'm just going to show you here. So if we go in the front of the stitch here, so we're just going in the front, we go around the needle and we pull through, but we don't come off. Then instead of pulling the stitch off, I'm going to come around and get into this back side here and knit into the back of the stitch. And that there creates 2 stitches where we had 1 before. I'm just going to make them go away because I don't need them there. Right, so now I'm just going to knit 10 rows and then I will see you back. Alright, so here we are at the end of knitting those 10 rows. You can still see there's this little floof that becomes the toe sticking out, and it's still rounded at the edges, but it's just straightened off. So this is the one that is row 17, I think it is. So what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to knit 19 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, this is where I feel like as soon as I start filming and knitting, I become a terrible knitter. And my stitches don't work. I think it's just from leaning around the camera, to be honest. I've got an overhead camera somewhere, but I've moved, so it's hard to remember exactly where everything is and what I plan on using. And in fact, where I'm going to be filming from now on. It's all those things up in once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Right, okay, so this has taken us to almost halfway. This is where we start shaping the top of the toe. So the first thing we're going to do is knit 2 together. Then we're going to knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slip, slip, and then knit. So we've slipped 2 stitches, and now we've put the needle in and we're going to knit them together. You can just knit 2 together at this point. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference if you're starting off. No one's really going to make too much of a notice. Then what we're going to do is we're going to slip this one as if we're about to purl it. Okay, so we've knit 2 together, knit 5, slip, slip, knit, or knit 2 together there, and we've slipped 1. Now we're going to turn the whole work around. And this is where our short rows begin. So now what we've got is this piece of yarn here set up in the second stitch in from our needle. We're going to start by purling 2 together, and then we are going to knit, well, purl 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then what we're going to do is we're going to purl 2 together here, and we're going to slip 1 more. Okay, so then when we turn it around, this is the same 2 rows repeated for some time. So we're going to have this one here's the working stitch, this one's the slip stitch. So we're going to knit these 2 together, knit 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, then slip. Oh, can't count today. Then we're going to slip, slip, knit, and then we're going to slip 1 as if we're going to purl it. So this is going to go on until we've got those toes done. Now I'm just going to slip this aside for the moment. So here on our green one, you can see that what we end up with is this toe that sticks out at the top. All right? So these are our knit 2 togethers on this side, and then on this side, it's not as neat, is the slip slip knit, or the SSK. And so when folded in half, what we're going to end up is this is the top of the foot, we've got a rounded bottom and a pointy toe. So I'll pick us up again when we get to the row of eyelets, and then before we get to the cast off. So in this section here, which is some of the worst filming I think I've ever done, I'm just trying to demonstrate the yarn over and then knit 2 together. Now this here is going to create our series of holes, but in my struggle to try and film close up as well as be clear, what I've got is, well, terrible stitching. So that's yarn over, then we're going to knit those 2 together. Sorry for the jump cut there. Then we're going to yarn over yet again, and we're going to knit those next 2 stitches together. Now this continues over the course of the whole row. Let's knit 2 together. So then yarn over, knit 2 together. Now this is going to give us the row of holes that we can thread our lacing through at the end. So here we've got our finished bootie but not sewn up. At this centre point, what we have is our row of eyelets that we've just made with our knit 1, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over. Then we just have 20 rows of knit at the top. Once you've got your 20 rows, you just bind off, fold in half, and seam up the bottom of the foot and up the back of the ankle, and you're done. Once it's sewn up, and you've got your row of holes, you can braid some yarn or put in some ribbon, and you've got your tie for your bootie. But if you need the pattern, you'll find it on my website linked below.